So this is a finance and admin presentation. Normally this would be part of our ratepayer meetings. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to happen this year, so we're going to try and supplement this with a little bit of a live event off the website. We have all of our financial information is up on the website, and we're referencing the financial statements that are presented there. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact me or Darren Jones. Our contact information will come up later, and it's also on the website as well. So I'm Darcy Ferguson. I'm the Director of Finance and Admin, and Darren Jones, my counterpart, will be presenting a further piece of the financial statements in just a little bit. He's the coordinator of financial services. So having said that, we'll just get right into the financial statements for last year. And one of the first things we'd like to talk about is just the cash position for 2019. So that's sitting at $38.6 million. Of course, that's up about $814,000 from last year. And that just is reflective of our cash position improving, mainly based on the fact that we didn't do as much gravel crushing last year as we expected to, and that because we didn't spend that money on inventory acquisition, we do have a little bit more cash at the end of the year. Our 2019 taxes receivable, unfortunately, that's up about $1.8 million right now. We have a bit of an issue that we've been talking about years past in terms of tax collection from the oil and gas. Certain segments of that industry don't have the cash flow necessary to make all of their payments, and one of the things they're shorting is tax payments. So we're busy trying to collect that money. We'll see how it goes this year. Just something we're going to continue to work on. The 2019 notes receivable is down significantly, and that's just a reflection that the Acadia Foundation is just about done paying off the loans required for the rebuild of the lodges. And the last little bit of that payment will be completely finished in 2021, but very lower amounts for 2020. And of course, the last big payment year was 2019. Our 2019 investment sitting at December 31st is $30.9 million. That's up a little bit from last year at $30 million even, and that's just a reflection of the reinvestment of interest earned over the year. Accounts payable, pretty much the same as last year, not too much to add there. Long-term debt, again, coinciding with our notes receivable, the long-term debt is just about paid off for the borrowing on the Acadia Foundation. And then we have a 2019 net financial asset number. So this is the number that's left over after if you converted all your assets into cash and paid out all your obligations. That would be $70.9 million, up from $69.8 the previous year. So, and again, that's reflective mainly of that change in inventory. So non-financial assets, that's of course the investments in roads and streets, and tangible capital assets, which being equipment, dozers, scrapers, trucks, etc., is sitting at $242 million, up from last year's number of 236. So, and again, that's just the net investment of assets being greater than amortization. And of course, we do provide additional information on this in Schedule 6 of the actual financial statements. So just one of the things to note in there is that we did invest $16.4 million in assets last year, unless we took $7.1 million off of that for amortization. That brings us to the final number on the statement of financial position. That's accumulated surplus. So it sits at $313 million, and that's up $7.7 million from last year's actual of $306. So this increase consists of the operational surplus, which is a net increase of $743,000, and of course the decrease on the inventory, and then operational deficit on a cash basis, which is also note 14 in the financial statements, is about $1.5 million. And again, just note that that is a deficit, operational deficit. Equity and tangible capital asset, the net increase there was $9.2 million. And the tax recovery land sale reserve, that balance sits at about $55 million. So Statement of financial position, just the key message from that is that the Special Areas Board is in a strong financial position. We do have sufficient financial resources to fund future operations and capital requirements. And the board also has a significant financial reserve as a result of the tax recovery land sale process and investments in tangible capital assets. The board's operational surplus currently sits after 2019 at $16.2 million. Okay, I'll now turn the presentation over to Darren Jones, who will take us through the next piece of our financial statements, the statement of operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Again, my name is Darren Jones. I'm the coordinator of financial services for the special areas. And I'm going to go over comparisons of the revenue for the 2019 year against what was budgeted. Again, there's a link on Ratepayer section of our special areas website that you can go to if you want to look into our audited financial statements and review a little bit more detail. So just a couple things about our statement of operations. We format our financial statements a little bit differently than what we budget. We budget on a modified cash basis, which includes all of our expenditures plus our capital purchases. When you look at the audited financial statements, they are based on accrual accounting, so they do not have capital purchases lumped in with each of the departments. So just going over the 2019 financial statements, revenue summary. In 2018, we had budgeted revenue of $51 million. Our actual came in at about 55.6. In 2019, we had a similar budget of $50.8 million. And at the end of 2019, our actual was 51.1, so 300,000 ahead. Just to show you in terms of taxation, our assessment value trend, our non-residential you can see is around 2.5 billion. If you were to add up all those little lines for 2019, our total assessment value is right around that $4 billion mark. This slide kind of highlights what our non-residential mill rates are. So you can see in 2019, it's around that 13. It's actually 13.27. And this just shows you the trend from 2001 on of the yellow section is the school mill rate of what's requisitioned from the province that we turn back to them for school funding. The red is the Acadie Foundation mill rate. You can see that it increased once we got into the development of the lodges, and it's getting smaller now. And then the non-residential mill rate, you can see it's gone up from 4 to about 8 over the last 20 years. So in terms of revenue summary, we had 32.8 million in actual net taxes. We had budgeted 32.4, so we were slightly ahead. In terms of leases, for 2019 we budgeted 9.4 million and came in at 8.9. In terms of provincial grant revenues, we budgeted $4.6 million and came in about 100,000 less than what was planned at 4.5 million. So you can see here the breakdown of our total total revenues. Net taxes, you can see, make up the bulk of that at $32.8 million. Grant revenue just short of 5 million. Revenue from other owned sources about 4 million. Interest revenue 1.2, and tax recovery land sale. The last sale is now done, so there was just some slight cleanup there. So, in terms of expense summary, again, we budgeted 42.6 on the accrual basis. We came in slightly over that at 43.4. Again, you factor in a couple of adjustments we have to get back to our cash basis, being amortization and assets acquired. We budgeted $54.7 million on the cash basis, and we came in slightly under that at 53.7. You can see there we budgeted 6.5 million in assets and came in at 8.2. In terms of transportation, our largest expenditure department, we budgeted 19.2 million, came in at 19.9 on the accrual basis. In terms of cash, 36.8 million, and we came in at 36.1 actual. Couple things to note here: we had some significant savings on reconstruction of the Caramere Road. What we did is we took that savings and turned around and bought our scrapers outright, as opposed to what our plan was doing a 5-year lease. And again, on that prior slide, you can see why there was a $2 million change on the capital assets. On to administration, we budgeted just a shade over $5 million, came in at $5 million on budget. In terms of water services, we budgeted 3.1 million, came in slightly under that at 2.8 million. In terms of agriculture and economic development, we budgeted 2.6, came in at 2.4, $200,000 savings on operations. And in recreation, we budgeted 2.3 million and came in just slightly under that at 2.27. So again, here's an expense summary of all the special areas expenditures. Again, you can see the magnitude of what transportation services entail, $36 million. Water treatment was $3 million. Agriculture and community development, just under $3 million. Recreation, 2.6. Admin, 5.5, and protective services, 2.93 million. So again, we had the Auditor General come in, as they do every year, and audit our financials. And again, this year we got a clean audit opinion from the Auditor General. Again, you can see those audited financial statements online on our specials website under the Ratepayer section. So just to recap, 2019, we did have a planned cash deficit of 2.8 million. Our actual cash deficit for the year, we were 1.3 million ahead and ended at a $1.5 million deficit. Couple that with our accumulated surplus, and in 2019 we ended with accumulated surplus of $16.2 million that we can use for future operations. And with that, I will turn it over to Darcy to talk about the 2020 budget.
Okay, thanks, Darren. So as Darren mentioned, our 2019 actual results were a little bit better than the budget, and we are, about $1.3 million ahead of where our budgeted deficit was, but we still ran a deficit of $1.5 million on a cash basis. So we moved that money over and started looking at the 2020 budget, and we decided that the board and council wanted to see if we could bring in a surplus budget or a balanced budget. And the initial plans for the 2020 budget was $1,863 positive, so essentially a balanced budget for 2020. So this was also given quite a few challenges before the board and council, in that we did know that there was some shallow gas assessment changes coming, expecting that assessment group to be down about 35%. This is going to result in a drop of total taxation revenue from that side, and we expected the assessment to be down to about 3.8 billion versus 2019's 4.1. We also did note that the last of the Acadia Foundation payments for the lodge construction was made. Most of the payment was made in 2019. There would be a little bit of a lagging payment left in 2020, and we expect that this will result in a reduction in the mill rate for that particular area. So that does create some opportunity for the board and council should they decide to step in that area. And we also had strong expectations for oil well drilling tax, which been exceptionally strong last couple of years. And even though we are having growth in the drilling program, that's not translating back into MSL revenue. That's because a lot of those wells are drilled from pads, multiple sites on one particular MSL. And then, of course, the reclamation work that's going on in other gas well sites. So that abandonment's more than offsetting the new wells that are being drilled in the new MSLs. So we are expecting that revenue stream to decline. So overall budget anticipated expenditure reductions of about 3.9 million in order to balance. So on the other hand, we were able to continue on with the scraper fleet replacement, GBC work, shoulder pole, and expansion of the Shirley McClellan Regional Water Commission pipeline. And then COVID-19 hit and all plans were put under review. So March 2020 review of the 2020 budget outlined several concerns regarding operations during a pandemic event and potentially negative impacts on the special area board's revenue streams. So, one of the questions became, how does the special areas operate crews in camps in a pandemic? At the same time, what's the impact of the oil price collapse on the oil and gas industry's ability to pay? And of course, have concerns with MSL rental collections and property tax collections. And of course, the property tax collection doesn't occur until November 15th. So that's significantly down the road and a long time after we've spent a large portion of what that particular piece would be funding in our budget. The board did approve overall mill rate reductions for industrial ratepayers, including, which also included the increased levy from the province. So as the board and advisory council went through the 2020 budget, they made significant number of changes, and they did that in several different phases. So the first phase one was removal of capital purchases not immediately required and able to defer. Some examples of these were the fire hall construction and regional water line extension. This saved about $2.9 million, which probably is not quite enough. So the board and council, with the help of special area staff, went back in and looked at what could be done in terms of operations to save additional funds. And then we came up with phase two reductions. So these were vetted through the board and council. And so that was just a recognition that the construction season and seasonal hiring probably would not be able to start until June 15th. And this shortened season would have an impact on operations. And the board and council also made the decision not to hire the shoulder pole crew and defer that work until the future. So with the phase two reductions, that savings mainly on staff salary and wages of seasonal workers, about $2.2 million. And of course, out of phase two, there came some additional savings opportunities. We called those phase three, and they were reductions that are based on changes in programs, service reductions based directly out of the phase two decisions. So the result is additional capital purchase deferrals, savings in fuel, parts, road oil, and other materials. And those savings came in at about $3.6 million. We then looked at other potential reductions. Mainly these were financing reductions that we could make. So switching to capital leasing finances versus purchases outright. This mainly impacts our scraper fleet replacement program. Those savings are potentially 2.2 million. All put together in terms of a package of savings. We're projecting that with decreased revenues, we've also decreased our expenditures, and these savings areas are about $10.9 million. So we're hoping that we do experience good collections from the oil and gas industry and taxation and MSLs. But should that money not appear, we'll have adjusted a lot of our operations to compensate for that. So if you have any further questions or comments or would like additional information, please feel free to contact me. I've got my contact information up there, and of course you can also get a hold of Darren Jones as well, and hopefully we'll be able to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.